Hello and welcome. I'm Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UAP, UFO news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'll be talking about current events that have come up in the social media this past week. First, I'll be addressing David Grushch's security clearance or lack thereof. I'll also be talking about the director of AARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office's director, Sean Kirkpatrick, and his imminent retirement. I'll be touching on the second Mexican UAP conference and covering an expedition that went into the Amazon to help the Kitu tribe that had been plagued by an ET-type hominid being that's been attacking them and possibly even peeling away their youngsters and family members' faces. Stay with me. It should be a fascinating podcast. I'd like to show a clip of a House representative called Eric Burleson. He was very effective in getting an amendment passed to reinstate David Grushch's security clearance.
I rise in support of this amendment, which would increase/decrease funding to express that the Office of Personnel Management should renew the security clearance of David Grushch. See, Mr. Grushch formerly served as the Reconnaissance Office representative to the UAP Task Force from 2019 to 2021. He recently testified before Congress claiming that partial fragments and even intact vehicles have been found for decades by the federal government, our allies, and defense contractors. According to Mr. Grushch, objects and vehicles retrieved are of, quote, exotic origin based on the vehicle's morphologies and material science testing and the possession of unique atomic arrangements and radiological signatures. Mr. Grushch also told us that the U.S. is in possession of non-human spacecraft and dead pilots. And finally, Mr. Grushch told us that he has spoken with the intelligence officials whom the U.S. military had briefed on, quote, football field-sized aircrafts, that the U.S. government transferred some crashed UAPs to a defense contractor, and that the intelligence officials were also briefed on malevolent activity from extraterrestrial beings. Now, of course, all of this is very interesting to me and a number of my colleagues on the Oversight Committee. And my first question, when I had an opportunity for Mr. Grushch, was to say that those are pretty incredible claims. But I'm from the show me state. You're going to have to show me. And I requested specifics, information, which could not be conveyed in that hearing, not in a secure setting. And unfortunately, he's unable to provide us with any supporting evidence to back up his claims because his security clearance has lapsed. Now, my understanding is that Mr. Grushch did go through the proper channels here by turning over classified information to the IC Inspector General. And he ultimately filed a complaint to the IC Inspector General alleging that the information that he presented to the IC has been illegally withheld from Congress. So I'd like to know more about these claims, and so would a number of my colleagues on both sides of the aisles. I'm certainly pleased that the Oversight Committee is working hard to bring the relevant Inspector General so we can cut through all of the roadblocks that have been presented since Mr. Grushch stepped forward. But we need to cover all possible angles here, and if we can get Mr. Grushch in a skiff with an active security clearance, that would go a long way. This amendment simply expresses the support for the Office of Personnel Management to renew the security clearance of David Grushch so that he can show us his work.
Gentleman yields. Questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Missouri. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Okay. So I thought that was a good synopsis for those of you that haven't been following reports on David Grushch. He talks about how he's recommending that they pass an amendment to have David Grushch's security clearance reinstated. And that was Eric Burleson from Missouri. He's a Republican, and he was very effective in getting that amendment passed. I'd like to now show a clip from News Nation where Chris Cuomo is speaking with Jeremy Corbell and giving their reaction to the amendment being passed.
Will allow the guy on your screen, whistleblower Dave Grushch, to give details, top secret information about UFOs, including what he had heard about alien bodies, and to now give it to members of Congress. Is today a day in the right direction? Investigative journalist Jeremy Corbell. It's good to see you, brother. Do you believe?
Well, this is a moment. Like, as you said, today is a good day. The pushback against David Grushch and what he testified to under oath during the congressional hearing, I mean, it was powerful. He said, I have the UFO program names. I have holding locations of intact non-human intelligence vehicles, one the size of a football field, not just spacecraft. But he says pilots, locations of non-human tech, and biologics, which is the word bodies. So, as well as, by the way, a list of both hostile and non-hostile people that he could call to come forward. So this has been fought against. Can we get David Grushch in a skiff? Today was great because, as you said, there was an amendment passed to make that happen, which shouldn't be hard because he's still eligible for all his clearances. It's the new beginning. David Grushch stepped forward, and remember, he came to me and George Knapp before any of this, before the public knew his name, and he was worried because of the reprisals coming at him. I can tell you, I have personally talked with more than a handful of individuals with direct witness knowledge of these programs, and they do want to come forward. And I'll tell you this, people have come forward to the ICIG, I guess, former Chuck McCullough. You know, people are making these assertions, and they are moving forward with the process. People don't trust Arrow. Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is out, and for good reason. So they're doing a better process. And the subpoenas are coming. That's the deal. Getting Grushch in there, he's going to name names. The subpoenas are coming.
I like it. We'll keep talking, and I appreciate you. Always a pleasure, brother.
Thank you.
So they seem excited about that. But I'd like to take a closer look. So obviously, a lot of people in the UFO community are excited about this amendment to get David Grushch's clearance back. I'd like to, as I said, take a closer look. And I got this on Reddit, posted by u/personal window 4938. Just to clarify things, this text pretty much says that Grushch did not have his clearance reinstated yet. Been a lot of overzealous and false headlines going around right now that a lot of people are running with. And we need to take a second to clear up the confusion here. And I agree. So I'm reading directly from this text. The news is reporting that, quote, an amendment was added to the Financial Services Appropriations Bill 4, which reinstated Grushch's security clearance. This is misleading and not at all what happened. It's good to know because most people, as well as myself, had assumed that it had already passed. Congress does not have the authority to issue security clearances via legislation. So what did happen is that an amendment was added to the bill to increase and then immediately decrease the Office of Personnel Management budget and to request they reinstate Grushch's clearance. What does this mean? Okay, it means Congress is asking the office to do them a favor, basically, and reinstate Grushch's security clearance. The office is under zero obligation to follow through and do this. This is Congress simply expressing that they would like it to be done. Other things to consider are the fact that the bill has not been passed through the House yet. Before it would have any weight at all, it would have to be, and the Senate, and get signed by the President, Biden, with that amendment attached. Every step of the process has to be followed. So the reason why, this needs to be pointed out is because there seems to be a lot of misinformation as to what actually happened. And folks are getting prematurely excited. I want Grushch to be in that skiff as well, as much as the next guy. But I also want us to understand what's actually going on and why we need to keep the pressure on. This is not over yet. Grushch still doesn't have his clearance. But Representative Anna Paulina Luna did get permission to read read the report that Grushch gave to the Inspector General. So that's something, even if Grushch can't make it into the skiff this time. Anna Paulina will be reading from the report that Grushch gave the Inspector General. And that should help shape the next UAP hearing. So I'd like to move on and talk about Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of ARROW, or the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. It's been announced that he's retiring, and I'm sure that you guys heard Jeremy Corbell in the previous clip that I showed that he is stepping down. I got this press release from the U.S. Department of Defense from the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kathleen Hicks, about Sean Kirkpatrick's upcoming retirement from the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Many people in the ufology circles are excited about Sean Kirkpatrick retiring because they considered him a gatekeeper or a disinformation agent, a gatekeeper who ignored testimony of whistleblowers time and time again. And he even, I guess, disparaged Grushch's statements, and at one point said that he had invited David Grushch in, but that David Grushch never came in to speak to him. And David Grushch replied right away in social media and outright said that that was a lie, that he was never invited to come in to talk to Sean Kirkpatrick. So now in the final weeks, he's making all these outrageous statements. And I have a recording of him actually stating that as an intelligence agent or former intelligence agent, that you should expect him to lie. And that certainly probably wouldn't have helped his case much, I would say.
You expect me to lie to you. Where we're really going is, as an intelligence officer, I would expect all of you to expect me to lie to you.
Okay, so I played that a few times because it's hard to believe that someone in his office would come out right and say that. It's a surprising statement, not to mention a few other surprising statements that he made in association with Grushch. And he recently also said that a paper that he put out with Avi Loeb, the famous scientist about the Oumuamua meteor, had been put out without his consent or before it had been edited properly by Avi Loeb. I guess on his way out, he just is coming out with all these bizarre statements. It's obvious to me, though, my reaction is that ARROW, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is supposed to be encouraging whistleblowers to come in and give testimony, is not working the way that it should. Hopefully, the next director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office will be much more forthcoming. I'd like to move on and talk about the second Mexican UAP hearing. I've just done one. They're already on their second one. And I thought it would be interesting to compare and contrast the way that they go about doing things. And there are a lot of reputable scientists and doctors involved in this. These are the mummies, of course, and they come in various sizes. These are very small. This past UAP hearing was on the 7th of November. So this is being translated. It's a little hard to understand. It's giving you a taste of what went on. It had 3 fingers and 3 toes. There were x-rays taken of them, MRIs. So they studied everything, the nervous system included. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea of how well studied these Mexican mummies are. They found eggs in one of the mummies that was being studied. There was some talk about fetus being found. Nervous system was studied. Their heads seemed to rest at a different location than ours, not centrally, more centrally located on the spine than ours is. Yeah, so the Mexican UAP hearing, the second one, took place on November the 7th. It was quite long, 3.5 hours. That's why I just wanted to give you a brief look at it. interesting thing about it is that what came out was that they're still not actively recording UFO sightings. And these mummies that they studied were from the first UAP hearings brought by Jaime Maussan, had previously been studied at a university in Ica, Peru. They had been thoroughly analyzed even before they got there. There's some talk that they're not human, but they might be have some human DNA in them. Speakers were all highly credentialed people, and they found eggs in one of the mummies, and they also found some metal pieces inside of some of the mummies of a rare, very rare metal. Yeah, they found a very pieces of rare metal called osmium, which wasn't even discovered until 1903 here, and it was infused into their bones. And we're talking about at least 1,000 years ago, if not more, on these mummies. How is that possible? My reaction to that is that it's definitely noteworthy. This is Dr. Celestino Adolfo Piotti, and he examined the bodies, and he says that the bodies examined at the Mexican Congress hearing don't come from space. They are our descendants. That's a big bombshell. I know they found some human DNA in it. They come from the future. So Dr. Celestino Adolfo Piotti is an Argentinian scientist and surgeon. He's one of the experts that were present in the second Mexican hearing, and he claims that after analyzing the bodies himself, he came to the conclusion that these bodies belong to a longtime descendant of modern human beings. He claims he discovered this idea when pairing his findings to an alternative evolution theory he developed in the 80s called the Guardian Theory. The remains of these mummies, he claims, are consistent with the evolutionary path of human beings, and most likely the other remains found in the Nazca caves, because supposedly they found a lot more mummies than we're seeing here at this hearing. These mummies were found in a mining cave, an old mining cave. Dr. Piotti is saying that these remains that were found could be the missing link between ancient hominids and modern sapiens. He's saying that there was some sort of genetic manipulation. So he's talking about some futuristic stuff here and genetic manipulation. And that was Dr. Celestino Adolfo Piotti that I just quoted from. So I thought it was interesting to see the difference between the Mexican UAP hearings and our UAP hearings. They're still not sure whether they're dealing with extraterrestrial mummies, talking about DNA being found, possible relation to human beings. There was metal, very rare metal found inside the mummies, some eggs as well. I just think that it's fascinating that pieces of metal were fused in the bones. I mean, my reaction to that is that these beings were pretty advanced if they were fusing metal into bone like that. I'd like to transition now and change gears and move into or go back to something that I talked about and did a couple of podcasts on. It's a tribe in the Amazon. It's called the Iquitu tribe, and since this past July, they've been plagued by some sort of a ET or some sort of a hominid being that's been terrorizing the Iquitu tribe, and they've been getting very little help from the government or the police. This Iquitu tribe lives in a very remote area of the Amazon. They also have this myth of a creature called the Pela Cara, and translated that means the face peeler. And they've had incidents where certain people have been abducted and their faces peeled off, and they believe that these are the culprits. Now, the government story on this, most probably these are not extraterrestrials, but illegal miners trying to get at the gold found in the reserves of the Amazon River, and they're trying to terrorize the local tribespeople to get at that gold. Unfortunately, the tribespeople have reported that they've shot at these beings and to no effect. They're not affected by shotgun pellets, and they're able to disappear. And the description of these beings that are terrorizing the Kitu tribe are very alien-like. They're supposedly wearing full-face helmets and flying on these surfboards. They have these shoes with discs on them that allow them to float. And just recently, right before this gentleman here, by the name of Timothy Alberino, who's a well-known author, published a book called Birthright. On his own dime, he organized an expedition and went down there with the fellow behind him by the name of Doug, an ex-Green Beret. And he brought a huge boatload full of supplies for these poor people in this remote area, investigated what was going on. He actually, him and Doug looked at their rifles and decided that they needed to be cleaned and better cared for. He actually brought down night vision goggles for them and radios that you see in that picture there on the table. And Doug and Timothy Alberino organized them so that they'd be able to do night patrols. They've been patrolling the jungle at night to keep their families safe. And I thought that that was noteworthy. And my reaction to that is more power to you, Timothy Alberino and Doug. Appreciate that somebody's looking out for this poor tribe, even though the government has been very unresponsive. From what I know, they sent a couple of police officers that were very lax in their investigation. So they're pretty much on their own. And I appreciate what Mr. Alberino and Doug have done down there, helping the Kitu tribe. And I thought that it was interesting. I mean, you never know what's going on down there. They have no reason to be lying about these beings flying around on discs. And as I said right before Mr. Alberino showed up, a 15-year-old girl was abducted and she was traumatized. And she gave a description of two beings flying on surfboards that tried to abduct her and tried to peel her face off. And it's just really odd, and I'm just very curious that this is still going on, because I had been reporting on this since this past July. Okay, so I'd like to conclude with a clip from an area very close to where Timothy Alberino and Doug went into their expedition. This is a clip of a tribesperson in a very remote area in the Amazon basin who's being asked whether he's familiar with what an alien is. Has he ever heard the word alien? He has no idea what they're talking about. But as soon as they show him a picture, he recognizes it right away. And they're speaking in Portuguese, by the way. I'll try and translate.
E alienígena não tem.
So they're asking him about aliens, and he says, what?
Alienígena? Que é?
Nunca, essa palavra você
He's
nunca ouviu
never
falar,
heard the word
alienígena.
before.
Alienígena, não. Isso chama-se Mayushibo.
They
Isso aqui?
Sim.
So they showed him the
Mancunawabu.
picture, and he's saying that
Sério?
they call it a Mancunan Wabu.
Mancunawabu é um que mora debaixo da terra.
É, eu falei,
Who lives
esse aí.
underneath the ground.
Que se virou formiga hoje, que nós chamamos
It
Una,
became an ant.
que é uma formiga grande, chama-se Mancunawabu.
Que essa formiga também é muito perigoso, né, Boiná?
And,
Se as pessoas
it's
ficam
very
mexendo
dangerous,
com ela demais, ela
and
leva o
a
espírito
lot
da
of people
pessoa
are missing
para
because
debaixo
of
da
it,
terra
and they
também.
can actually
Para
take your
voltar tem que ser um
spirit
pajé bem bom.
underneath the ground.
São seres que pode aparecer
He
em
says that
luz
they can appear in a divine
divina,
light,
luz do Nishipã. São seres que a gente pode ter o contato, que moram debaixo
says
da
that you
terra.
can make contact with them. So this is interesting, and you know, in light of what's going on with the Kitu tribe, I don't know if there's any connection. There's also been a lot of reports of grays living underneath the ground. So I thought it was noteworthy that they have a mythos or a legend of a creature called the Mancunawabu that has become an ant and lives underneath the ground now. And quite often, in some reports, the grays are reported as being ant-like. So there's obviously something going on in the Amazon area. I'd like to show a clip of something a tribesperson from the Amazon recorded recently. It's a hominid, some sort of a creature or a man inside of a tree, and you have to look way up at the top of the screen in order to see this. So this is the heading says Peru attacks footage of a black figure adjusting something on its back whilst atop a tree in the Pichanaki district of Peru. That's in the Amazon basin. If you look up here, you see there's somebody up there. How they got up there is beyond me.
Mira, huevón, puta madre, casa.
I'll enlarge it so that you get a better look.
Ya
Look up
la
here.
casa, mira, mira, huevón, puta madre, casa.
Okay, how they got up there is beyond me. Right up here. Take a look there. Somebody in that tree, way up there. See there? I have no idea what that is, but it's interesting in light of the reports of hominids flying around. Figure here is adjusting something on their back. And there have been reports of illegal miners with jetpacks flying around that are terrorizing these people. So I just thought that was noteworthy in relation to the quote-unquote ET hominid attacks or the Bella Cara attacks going on in the Peruvian Amazon forest with the Iquitu tribes. So before I end, I'd like to also show a clip of Ross Colhart commenting on the change of leadership at Arrow. This is Ross Colhart talking with Bryce Zabel, saying that Carl Nell is one of the candidates for the new director of Arrow, but that there may be some pushback from the Department of Defense. And Carl Nell supported David Grushch in the debrief article and agrees with the what Grushch has been saying. Just going to play a little bit of this.
That one of your sources from your book was one of the people. Is that Carl Nell? That was one of the people
he was a source for Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal for their debrief story,
right.
And he provided the support for David Grushch in the original David Grushch story that appeared in the debrief that broke the story of David Grushch, and he unequivocally backed David Grushch to the hilt as a person of integrity and vouched for what he was saying, which is quite extraordinary because, one, he's a full bird colonel, and two, he's a hugely well-respected person inside the US defense community. And yes, I've heard his name is being mooted as a potential candidate, but there are other names, and I know there's a pushback from defense. The defense.
Okay, so that was Russ Colhart commenting on the possibility of Carl Nell being the next director of Arrow. Okay, and I'm just going to show a picture of what Carl Nell looks like. This is Carl Nell right here. Yes, Carl Nell was very supportive of Grushch. He's a retired Army colonel who worked with David Grushch on the UAP task force. He could be the new director of ARROW, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Carl Nell said that Grushch's claims are true, that NHIs or non-human intelligences are behind some of the UFOs that we see. So in addition to that, I'd like to do an update on Eric Burleson's push. Eric Burleson was very effective in pushing for the amendment to get his clearance so that he could possibly speak in one of the SCIF meetings. And there was supposed to have been one on the 16th, one of two. And I just got an update on the SCIF meeting and aftermath, and it's not very encouraging. Eric Burleson, who was tweeted here that he thought the plan to review Grush's account of the UAP was BS. He wasn't very happy with the results of the meeting. It says here that Burleson says Inspector General had BS plan to quote unquote review Grush's account for the UAP caucus in SCIF. So Eric Burleson, which was the person that was very effective in getting Grush's clearance through as an amendment, doesn't necessarily mean that he has clearance yet, but he was really pushing for that. And I guess he wanted Grushch at the SCIF meeting that was planned for the 16th this past Thursday, but that was postponed until after the holidays. And Eric Burleson was very upset about that. So before Thursday's SCIF briefing was postponed, Eric Burleson was hoping to get something out of it. And he reported that his staff was alerted by the House Oversight Committee personnel that the intelligence community never intended to let lawmakers read the UFO whistleblower David Grush's firsthand account in the SCIF. So the SCIF that was supposed to happen on the 16th is now postponed for 3 weeks, but the UAP caucus members are promising to keep the pressure on the Inspector General. 2 House caucus members confirmed that the second classified Grushch briefing is now slated for Thursday, December the 7th. Burleson said that it's sad the classified session had to be moved until after Thanksgiving. So Eric Burleson is understandably pretty upset there. He did go through a lot of trouble to try and get Grush's clearance reinstated. Congress is pretty preoccupied, especially before the holidays and especially now with the budget and all. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just wanted to keep you up to date on what's going on. Also know now that Sean Kirkpatrick, as director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is out, and Carl Nell will possibly be stepping in, and he's a very pro-Grushch advocate, so that should be good for more transparency from Arrow. I hope you guys enjoyed my coverage of the expedition by Timothy Alberino and Doug to help the Kitu tribe. It's obvious that something is going on down there, whether it's a PSYOP program by the military, but somebody is definitely messing around with the Kitu tribe down there. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I am at UFOdisclosure.com. My Instagram is UFO Disclosure Podcast. And my Twitter is UFO Disclosure with an underscore at the end. And I also have a YouTube channel at UFO Disclosure -B as in Bravo R3YY. Thank you very much. Happy holidays to all of you out there. And all my love and good intentions go out to all. Stay well and keep looking for the truth. Thank you. Thank you for listening.